Have you ever stood in front of a dessert table, eyes wide, stomach rumbling, and thought to yourself, there's no way I could ever give up sugar? Trust me, I've been there. The pastries in the shop window seem to call your name, and every time you open your kitchen pantry, it's like a parade of cookies, candies, and chocolate bars, all begging for your attention. I used to think that giving up sugar would be absolute torture, like some kind of cruel punishment reserved for only the most disciplined health nuts. I mean, who willingly says goodbye to donuts, ice cream, and that late-night chocolate fix? It sounded impossible, and honestly, a little bit scary. Would I be able to survive a whole month without my favorite treats? Would I turn into a cranky, joyless version of myself, forever longing for just one more bite of cake? These were the questions swirling in my mind as I contemplated the challenge ahead. But here's the thing. Once I actually started, I realized it's not as scary or as boring as I'd imagined. In fact, it was kind of exciting. I discovered a whole new world of flavors and foods that I'd been ignoring in favor of quick sugar fixes. Instead of feeling deprived, I found myself enjoying meals more than ever. Lunches with friends became about fresh, colorful salads and hearty, satisfying dishes that didn't leave me feeling sluggish. Cooking at home turned into a creative adventure, experimenting with spices, herbs, and ingredients I'd never really paid attention to before. The fear of missing out on sugar slowly faded, replaced by a curiosity about what my body, and my taste buds, could do without it. So, what actually happens when you quit sugar for 30 days? Let me walk you through it day by day, week by week, because the journey is full of surprises. I started by marking off each day on my calendar, determined to track my progress. I kept a journal, jotting down how I felt, what I ate, and any cravings that popped up. I even convinced a few friends to join me, and we shared our experiences, tips, and struggles. It became a little community project, and that support made a huge difference. If you're thinking about trying this yourself, I highly recommend finding a buddy or two to keep you motivated. Day one was rough, I won't lie. I found myself standing in front of my pantry, eyeing every snack with suspicion. Suddenly, it felt like sugar was hiding everywhere. In my cereal, my granola bars, even my so-called healthy yogurt. I had to read labels, double-check ingredients, and make some tough choices. The temptation was real. Every time I reached for a snack, I had to pause and ask myself, is this really worth it? My sweet tooth was not happy. It was like a little voice in my head whispering, come on, just one cookie won't hurt. But I stayed strong, reminding myself why I started this challenge in the first place. The cravings hit hard in those first few days. I'd find myself reaching for a cookie, only to pull my hand back at the last second. It was almost automatic, like my body was on autopilot, programmed to seek out sugar whenever I felt bored, stressed, or tired. I realized just how much of my eating was driven by habit, not hunger. My sweet tooth was definitely not ready to give up without a fight. It was like, hey, what's the big idea? Where's my daily dose of sugar? But I kept reminding myself that this was just the beginning, and that things would get easier with time. By the end of the first week, something interesting started to happen. I noticed that I wasn't crashing after lunch anymore. You know that feeling when you eat a big meal, maybe sneak in a dessert, and then suddenly you're hit with a wave of exhaustion, that dreaded afternoon slump? Well, it started to disappear. Instead of feeling groggy and unfocused, I actually felt refreshed and alert. My energy levels were more stable, and I didn't need that extra cup of coffee just to make it through the day. It was a small change, but it made a big difference in my productivity and mood. As week 2 rolled around, I was shocked by how much more energy I had. I started waking up earlier, feeling ready to take on the day. I even went for a jog in the morning, a habit I'd never managed to stick with before. My workouts felt easier and I recovered faster. I found myself dancing around the kitchen while making breakfast, just because I felt good. It wasn't the jittery, short-lived energy you get from a sugar rush. This was real, sustained energy that lasted all day. I felt lighter, both physically and mentally, and I started to wonder why I'd relied on sugar for so long. One of the most surprising things was how my taste buds changed. At first I missed the intense sweetness of candy and desserts, but after a couple of weeks I started to notice the natural sweetness in foods I'd never appreciated before. Fruit tasted amazing, like actual candy. A ripe strawberry or a slice of watermelon was suddenly the best thing I'd ever eaten. Even vegetables like carrots and sweet potatoes seemed sweeter and more flavorful. It was like my senses had been reset, and I could finally taste food the way it was meant to be enjoyed. I started looking forward to meals, excited to discover new flavors and textures. And here's another bonus I didn't expect. My cravings for junk food started to fade. I used to think about snacks all day long, constantly planning my next treat. But as the days went by, I found myself reaching for healthier options without even thinking about it. Nuts, seeds, and fresh fruit became my go-to snacks. I stopped feeling hungry every 2 hours, and I didn't have that desperate urge to raid the pantry late at night. My body seemed to settle into a new rhythm, and I felt more in control of my eating habits. Social situations were a bit tricky at first. There were moments when I had to politely decline a slice of birthday cake or pass on the office donuts. At first, it felt awkward, like I was missing out on the fun, but over time I realized that I didn't need sugar to enjoy myself or connect with others. In fact, I felt proud of my decision, and some of my friends even started asking questions about my experience. It sparked some great conversations about health, habits, and the power of making small changes. By week 4, the benefits were undeniable. My skin looked clearer and brighter, and I felt more confident without makeup. My mood was more stable, and I wasn't as irritable or anxious as I used to be. I slept better at night, and I woke up feeling rested and ready for the day. Even my focus at work improved. I could concentrate for longer periods without getting distracted or needing a sugar fix. My relationships felt stronger too, because I was more present and engaged with the people around me. It was like a fog had lifted, and I could see and feel the difference in every part of my life. Now, I won't pretend it was all easy. There were definitely moments when I wanted to give up, especially when I was tired or stressed. There were days when I craved a piece of chocolate or a scoop of ice cream, and I had to remind myself why I started this journey. But every time I pushed through a craving, I felt a little bit stronger and more in control. The sense of accomplishment was worth every struggle. Looking back, I can honestly say that quitting sugar for 30 days was one of the best decisions I've ever made for my health and happiness. So, is it easy? Not at all. There will be challenges, temptations, and moments of doubt. But is it worth it? Absolutely. The benefits go way beyond just physical health. They touch every part of your life, from your mood and energy to your relationships and self-confidence. If you're thinking about trying it, I encourage you to give it a shot. You might be surprised by what you discover about yourself along the way. So, what do you think? Could you ditch sugar for a month? Or does that still sound like sweet, sweet madness? Maybe you're curious but a little bit nervous. Or maybe you're ready to jump in with both feet. Either way, remember that it's not about being perfect. It's about making small changes and seeing how they add up over time. You don't have to do it alone, and you don't have to give up everything you love. Start with one day, then 1 week, and see how you feel. You might just surprise yourself. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Have you ever tried quitting sugar? What was the hardest part for you? What benefits did you notice? Or maybe you're thinking about giving it a try and have some questions. Drop a comment below and let's start a conversation. Your story might inspire someone else to take the first step. Remember, every journey starts with a single choice, so are you in?